Africa is on the front lines of climate change. The continent contributes only a small share of global greenhouse gas emissions, yet it faces some of the most severe impacts, from prolonged droughts and floods to food insecurity and threats to livelihoods. Now, despite this vulnerability, Africa receives less than 10% of global climate adaptation funding. Now, these challenges will be at the center of discussions at the upcoming Africa Matters Summit, hosted by Channel Africa in partnership with Wits Business School on the 25th of March in Johannesburg, under the theme Financing Africa's Recovery. Well, to discuss the science behind climate risks, the role of innovation, and the urgent need for climate finance, I'm now joined by Dr. Shingirirai Mutanga, who's the Research Director at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, or CSIR, in South Africa. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you so much, and greetings to all the viewers.
Dr. Mutanga, Africa contributes a relatively small share of global emissions, but is among the regions that are most affected by climate change. From a scientific perspective, how severe is this climate threat that's facing the continent today?
Yeah, well, I think climate impacts is now our daily experiences with the harsh climate extremes that we are experiencing today. You speak of your floods, you speak of your heat waves, the fires that are sparked by the heat waves that we have, the droughts, the extreme, and the frequency of these climate events as of late has gone so up. And it's vivid in today's this world now, across the world, the impacts and the repercussions of climate change to the world today. And you are right to say that Africa is among the most severely affected regions from the ramifications of climate change, partly because we do not have sufficient resources to support the adaptation mechanisms needed in order to adapt to the unpredictable climate ramifications that we have in the world today.
So you lead research at the CSIR that uses advanced data, modeling, and Earth observation technologies. I'm curious, how can science and innovation help African governments better understand climate risks and actually plan for resilience?
Firstly, it's the issue of climate risk evidence and data infrastructure, which is a critical pillar for us to respond to climate change. And for this, we do have global world models that are used actually in climate science to predict or forecast, but there is need to downscale these to the regional context so that we better understand the impacts of climate change to the world. And part of the work that we do is this evidence building through climate risk analysis, using, of course, Earth observation data, where we integrate satellite integrated data, as well as climate models in order to support policy as well as investment decisions. And we do provide the technological innovation, particularly using artificial intelligence-driven climate forecasting and early warning system to support the climate risk mapping. And under this banner, I would say the key message there is better data, predictive analytics, reduce investment risk, and making climate projects more attractive, particularly to financiers, because there's a skewed distribution of resources towards our uptake of climate finance within the world today.
I mean, it's a fact that South Africa is a bit of an anomaly when it comes to this climate change story, because whilst the continent is a very small contributor, South Africa by itself is a huge contributor given our coal and mining industry. With the research that you do and the work that you do, are you working with partner organizations, similar organizations across the continent to find a Pan-African solution? Because climate change doesn't affect one country only.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. We do collaborate with quite a number of agencies within the country and also beyond the borders of South Africa in the continent to try and advance technology innovation in response to the discourse around climate change. And we even team up with multilateral agencies, your UN agencies, to try and drive the cause for climate change. Just a case in point, I think just recently, as we are aware, just a year ago, South Africa was leading the G20 process, and CSIR has actually been playing a very critical role, particularly on some of the South Africa's strategic streams on climate, as well as the energy, particularly in the energy transition discourse, to which I think we have been playing a leading role. And the whole idea, I think, is to also build the case and evidence for climate adaptation, and of course, and not to be blinkered at looking at the climate mitigation component, but also to look at adaptation and what it needs, particularly to countries such as South Africa. Yes, it's true that South Africa is among the African nations, is among the leading emitters of emissions particularly, but South Africa had already taken a bold stance, particularly around the coal mines and the decommissioning of coal mines in an attempt to respond to the climate mitigation call to reduce the emissions. But striking a balance between the transition to alternative energy sources vis-a-vis the need for strategic empowerment of the South African populace, particularly when it comes to the need to drive the agenda for broad economic empowerment of the people, particularly the vulnerable.
I had a conversation with the former statistician general, Paddy Lekgotla, the other day, and one of his big concerns was that we are very good at producing data, very good at doing research, but unfortunately, there's a disconnect between this powerful bed of information and its use by those that can use it. Is this something that you're finding, or are we doing the best with the information that you're providing?
Certainly, I want to agree with that sentiment to say that yes, there's a plethora of data that is available out there, but the utility of it, particularly to decision making and practical implementation of activities on the ground, there's a disjuncture there, and it's part of CSIR's role. What we're doing actually in trying to mainstream the climate science into the strategic planning, and now that South Africa as a country has adopted the Climate Change Act, and the presidency has already put in place the Presidential Climate Commission with an attempt to try and drive the cause for climate change, and mainstreaming this across the different tiers of government is what we are busy with now. And our role actually is to provide the evidence that is needed in order to bolster the decisions that are put forward in order to respond to the cause for climate change.
Funding is a big issue, a big conversation, and one that we'll certainly be unpacking. But I am curious, what practical steps can African countries take right now to strengthen climate resilience, particularly in areas like agriculture, water security, and urban development beyond financing?
True. finance is key, and building climate resilience. Obviously, we need to tap into the financial resources. And part of the challenge, I think, which we have been having as a continent is that we have been failing, I think, to tap into the global climate change facility funds pool. For example, we have financial mechanisms like such as the GEF, which is the Global Environmental Facility. We have also the GCF, which is the Global Climate Fund. And if you look at the distribution and the statistics around what trickles then to Africa, it has been largely skewed on the lower side of the value chain. And increasingly, with the realization of the growing demand, particularly around the climate adaptation, we need to tap into these financial mechanisms and increase the flows of financial flows. And part of the work that we're doing is to develop models that de-risk the climate investment into particularly in vulnerable communities, which we have in the country. And of course, technology helps us improve transparency, accountability, as well as investor confidence within the broader scheme of climate finance, which is something that we are working on. In addition, climate sensitive sectors, you mentioned agriculture, food security, they are key cornerstones as well. And we need to tap into the innovations, both from technology innovation as well as your precision agricultural tools, as well as the advisory services that are needed in order to provide not only technology, but also climate smart agricultural technology options in order to protect the food systems while we attract the available climate adaptation finance mechanisms and mainstreaming this through the different tiers of government in order to realize the implementation goals of climate.
So, as a panelist at the Africa Matters Summit in a couple of weeks' time, what is the key message that you would like to be bringing to policymakers and investors and developmental partners about climate finance in particular and climate recovery?
Firstly, the point that better data and predictive analytics assist us to reduce investment risks, and making climate projects more attractive to financiers is what we need to play a key pivotal role on. And then secondly, we need to develop technology-enabled climate smart technology options in order to protect our climate sensitive sectors such as agriculture, water, as well as the energy sector. And within the realm of energy, while we drive the clean energy dimension, we need not to negate, I think, some of the key cornerstones of the value chain that are underpinned within the energy transition cycle. And then also the look at carbon markets as well as nature-based solutions in order to respond to the challenges of climate on our landscapes and, of course, the world that we live in today.
Dr. Mutanga, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for sharing your thoughts and insights with us. And I look forward to seeing you on the 25th.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
That was Dr. Shingirirai Mutanga, a research director at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, here in South Africa. He'll be one of the panelists at the Africa Matters Summit taking place on the 25th of March in Johannesburg. It's now 8:30. Here are your news headlines with Onelen Sinsi.
SABC